Welcome back to ESPR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Paul Kelly. It's Monday morning, and we're hearing news of a big heavyweight fight that is going to take place on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou on March the 8th. Former world champion Joseph Parker will take on Zhilei Zhang, who of course stopped Joe Joyce twice last year on these shores. But yeah, they'll be fighting in Saudi Arabia on March the 8th against each other. Paul, two top 10, two arguably top five heavyweights. It's another big heavyweight clash in Saudi Arabia to look forward to. What's your take on it?
Yeah, mate, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think that, as you mentioned there, both are definitely top 10 heavyweights. Maybe you could have a debate or an argument as to whether they're both top five, but, I'd say that they're both comfortably top 10. Excuse me. But yeah, no, man, I'm really looking forward to this fight, especially after, if you look at their last two performances, the two fights Zhang had with Joyce, obviously first one was he was superb, and then in the rematch, I for one actually thought Joyce would make the necessary adjustments. Obviously didn't. Emphatic knockout, stunning KO, and then you look at Joe Parker, and let's be honest, 99% of the boxing world thought he was going to get knocked out by Deontay Wilder. Um, and he went in there, and yes, maybe it's the artist formerly known as Deontay Wilder, but he won arguably every single round against Wilder. So, no matter what Wilder turns up, like that's impressive. Nobody's dealt with Wilder that way. Even Fury, kind of went life and death with Wilder on two occasions, but obviously the second was pretty conclusive. But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to this fight. You have to say it, don't you? Like, these fights are being made because the Saudis are just like, right, here's the money. These are the fights we want to happen. So go make it. And everyone's playing, singing off the same hymn sheet, mate. And making it happen because it's in everyone's best interest. And yeah, mate, really looking forward to this one as well.
Yeah, look, money talks. I just think if there wasn't as much money on the table, I think Joseph Park would be within his rights to say, actually, don't fancy fighting Zhilei Zhang. He's a lot taller than me, had a very impressive 2023. I could have an easier touch for a similar amount of money, but a different amount of money is clearly on the table in this fight. And it means that fighters aren't requiring as much notice. They're being less fussy about their opponents. I think Anthony Joshua against Otto Ballin is an example in that. If there wasn't as much money on the table, I think Joshua could have easily turned around and said, either I want more time or I want, or not necessarily an easier opponent, just a bit of a somewhat, just kind of a bit of a bit of a softer touch, especially if he was about to fight Deontay Wilder, which is probably now unlikely to ever happen. Um, who had the better 2023 Paul? Zhang had those two victories over Joyce. Got to remember that first fight, decent sized underdog in that first fight and shocked a lot of people. Parker fought four times in last year, four wins. Um, Obviously had that big win against Deontay Wilder that you mentioned. Simon Keane, Jack Massey. Can't remember the other guy he fought. I feel like he fought one kind of top heavyweight there, and the other one's not so much. He was obviously bouncing back after that loss against Joe Joyce in 2022. Um, who would the better 2023 for you?
Mate, that's such a good question. Like that's a really tricky question to answer. I think the other name you were thinking of with Parker was it Opalu. He knocked out as well.
Gonna go for that, yeah.
But yeah, I think oh, think despite having the Wilder win, I would actually probably say Zhang had the better 2023 because Joe Joyce was on this run where he was the next guy to get in there with potentially Fury or Usyk or whatever, and like he was the one being talked about as the next threat kind of to the heavyweight throne. And first fight, everyone knows that Joyce was like slow and um, it was just relentless. So everyone thought, yeah, it doesn't matter if he's a few rounds down against Zhang. Like his engine will just take over and he'll just grind his opponents down with that granite chin as well. It doesn't matter how many shots he takes. Obviously, the first time he could not stay out of the way of the Zhang southpaw jab or the 1-2 as well, and he was forced to. Um, there was obviously a stoppage in that fight because his face was a mess. Second time around, as I mentioned at the beginning, think Zhang was maybe it was. I'm pretty sure I can't really remember exactly, but and I think the bookies maybe had it fairly even second time around. But a lot of people did think Joyce would make the necessary adjustments. I was one of them. How wrong I was, mate. Zhang was incredible, and he's one of these ones where everyone talks about Zhang's gas tank being a potential problem and stuff, but like if he continues knocking people out the way he has been, who cares about his gas tank? He's showing now that he's one of the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division. And everyone forgets as well that he's got that amateur pedigree as well. So yeah, Southpaw is a real nuisance. I would maybe just have to edge it towards Zhang just because of his two wins against Joyce. But then, ever so slightly because Parker's win against Wilder, nobody thought he would do that. And it was so one sided. And yeah, his other three wins bouncing back from the Joyce defeat as well, of course.
Yeah, no, no, brilliant. It's look, yeah, it's a tricky question, and one that we can maybe dive into as we get a bit closer to the fight as well. But look, both had emphatic 2023s, and yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting one. I think if this fight was made 6 months ago, I don't think you would have had many people going for Parker, in my opinion. Whereas now, kind of the landscape has changed, and some people might say that Zhilei Zhang's wins over Joyce were good wins, but they were kind of there's been an exaggeration on how good he is now. You're having some people picking him to beat Fury, to beat Joshua. Some people would agree with that, some people wouldn't. And Parker, look, I think he's had a solid career. But I
Yeah.
just think that win against Wilder is his best win in his career by some distance, not just because of who he was against, but the style that he did it in. It was such a clear victory. Who do you think's the favourite going into this one, Paul? When it comes to, obviously we'll kind of review some betting odds as we do as we get closer to the fight. Who do you think will be the favourite?
It wouldn't surprise me if Parker was the favorite now, just because of the win over Wilder. But in my head, I don't, I could be wrong. So let us know, guys, in the comments what you think. But I think the majority of boxing fans would maybe have Zhang as a favorite here. I actually really don't know, mate.
Mm,
It's very even. It's
okay.
a very tricky question to answer. What about you? What do you think?
I would edge towards Zhang, but I don't really know. I mean, look, the answer is there might not really be a favorite. It might be one when kind of both fights are 10 to 11. Um, so there might not be one. It could at least be one of those fights. Final question, Paul. Um, gonna give a quick prediction. How far are we away? What, 6, 7 weeks away from fight night now? I'll go first for a change. I think, I will go for Zhang to win this. I think he's a very tricky customer. I think he's one of the hardest punchers in the division. I think he's a much larger man than Parker. Um, yeah, I'm going to go Zhang. How about you?
Interesting, mate. Very interesting. I'm gonna go the other side. I'm actually backing Joe Parker to win this now, and think you might think that I have something against Zhang because I've backed him his last three fights now to lose, but no, I just think that the way Parker dealt with Wilder, I could see him doing something similar.
Mm.
Zhang, obviously, Zhang far better skill set and boxing ability than Wilder did, but I could see Parker winning and probably on points, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
unless Zhang does tire, like people say, and he maybe takes him out late. But I would probably at this stage edge towards Parker on points. Was your points or a knockout for Zhang?
Um, I'd edge towards a knockout. Yeah, I think I think he's got fantastic power. Um, but look, Parker, it's gone 12 rounds with Joshua, 12 rounds with Dillian White. So it will be hard, got stopped by Joe Joyce, but that was what, round 11 of the fight, I think. So, he's not an easy man to stop, but I would edge for Zhang Shang knockout. Look, Paul, I think it's probably the on the undercard fight you're going to see this year. Um, and could be one of the top heavyweight fights we see this year. Look, obviously we're going to see Fury Usyk. We hope to see kind of maybe Joshua face one of those guys down the line. See what happens with with the likes of kind of Philip Hrgovic as well. But actually, this is one of the top the best heavyweight fights we're going to see this year. Whether they're top 10, top five, it's debatable, but it's arguably two top five, two top six guys fighting each other. So it's really one to look forward to. Paul, we'll leave it there. March the 8th, Zhilei Zhang versus Joseph Park on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. We'll leave things there. Paul, thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Nice one, mate. Cheers.